All right. Ladies and gentlemen, dear panelists, welcome to this ESPONweek event dedicated to the exchange on how just transition can bring recovery for regions and cities. I am Wiktor Szydarowski, director of the ESPON EGTC. The ESPON is the EU-funded program that wants to connect researchers with policymakers. We are providing territorial evidence for all levels of the governments in the ESPON program countries. And this is the entire EU and the 4 partner countries of Norway, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, and Iceland. We want to see that the policies taken by the ESPON member country organizations are well-timed, are based on the real needs, are place-sensitive, and also that they respect the need to ensure that no one is left behind. I think this term is very well known among us. No one is left behind, and I think this is also a leitmotif for the specific debates. We are going to talk about the just transition and recovery. Just to remind everyone here, the just transition mechanism is a key tool to ensure that the transition towards a climate neutral economy happens in a fair way, again, leaving no one behind. It should provide targeted support to help mobilize at least 150 billion euros over the period of 2021-2027 in the most affected regions. And which regions are these? We'll, of course, discuss throughout this debate. And the purpose is to help alleviate the socio-economic impact of the transition. The Just Transition mechanism has 3 pillars: a new Just Transition Fund, Invest EU Just Transition Scheme, and also EIB Public Sector Loan Facility. This debate is going to provide some advice to policymakers on how to address the double challenge of just transition and recovery. Is it possible to fight on 2 fronts? What are the tools that are provided by the European Union in that respect? Are they sufficient to ensure territorial balance and justice, and also protect small and medium-sized enterprises and labor? How can cities and regions benefit from these tools? Also, how is the EU response comparable to other global efforts? And last but not least, the status of the negotiations for the new budget. So what kind of funding we are going to talk about ultimately. Also, I need to inform you that ESPON program has just released a policy brief on structural change potential of coal phase-out regions. This was commissioned by the German presidency of the Council of the EU. And we are very happy and very pleased to exchange on this topic with our panelists. Let me greet in this virtual room Madame Elisa Ferreira, Commissioner for Cohesion and Reforms, Mr. Emil Boc, Mayor of Cluj-Napoca, and former Prime Minister of Romania, who is the member of the Committee of the Regions Commission for Territorial Cohesion Policy and EU budgets. We have with us Mr. Jerzy Buzek, who is the member of the Parliament and ex-president of the European Parliament. And also we have with us Mr. Volkmar Vogel, who is Parliamentary State Secretary to the Federal Minister of the Interior, Building and Community of Germany. So welcome, dear guests. We are very happy that you found some time to sit with us in this debate and provide your advice to us and other important members of the audience. Let us start with the short video message by the President of the EU Parliament, David Sassoli, to set the scene for this specific debate. So, please.
Buongiorno a tutti, vorrei iniziare a ringraziarvi per questo invito e ringraziare i partecipanti di questo evento le autorità locali, regionali, i rappresentanti delle città, esprimere il mio apprezzamento per il lavoro come attori chiave nella risposta europea alla crisi del Covid-19. Ci tengo anche a ringraziare i lavoratori del settore sanitario, dell'assistenza nei vari settori. La pandemia ha colpito duramente la nostra economia, ciò di cui le
O să cred că s-a închis pe mine, să mă închis de pe ecran de acolo. Să rămân numai pe ăsta. Dar mă văd în continuare aici. Tu să ieși complet. Gata.
All right, seems we have some technical problems with transmitting the video message. We'll fix and come back on that. If I could perhaps refer to what President Sassoli is talking about here, we'll transmit the entire video message. But the standpoint from the European Parliament is that Europe needs an ambitious recovery plan from the crisis. Europe needs to rebuild the economy and also, interestingly, to ensure that the recovery won't be driven by the paradigms of the past. So this is an important statement that I would also like you, dear panelists, to relate to in your interventions. We need to radically change our economic models. At the same time, we need to ensure a fair transition that is suitable both for us and future generations. No one should be left behind. Also, this is what President Sassoli is saying. So we must ensure the creation of new jobs and new opportunities for all. At the same time also, President Sassoli is saying that we need to ensure the full involvement of European regions and cities in this process, something that will be definitely very important to take up. If I could start asking you, dear Commissioner Ferreira, we have this just transition and recovery. Do you think it is possible that we address these two challenges at the same time? Some people may say, well, the EU needs to step a little bit back in the environmental goals to protect the economy and employment in coal-dependent regions. So what's your point on that? What's your position? Do you share these views?
Well, thank you very much for organizing this discussion, and it is a great pleasure for me to be back in a discussion with you, with Mr. Buzek, with whom I have a very, very close, friendly relationship since he was president in the European Parliament, and of course Mr. Emil Bock and the German presidency, and it's really a pleasure to have this discussion. Then, trying to answer your question, of course, we have we have to be able to get the two things together. We cannot split the world, do a kind of double approach to growth and to development, because we cannot trigger development without considerations in relation to the impact in people, starting with this. So the motto of leaving no one behind in regions or in society is more relevant than ever, because also the pandemic and the consequences, the economic consequences of pandemic are going to increase imbalances inside Europe, definitely. Secondly, we have got to make a recovery that is green, because the planet is telling us every day that we have got to reassess the way in which we have triggered development. And thirdly, we have got to not to repeat what was done before, but to do it in a future-oriented way. Now we recognize on every meeting, on every discussion we have, that probably we were putting too much of a burden in the environment, because there were other ways to do meetings like this one, to organize the way we travel, the way we work, the way we heat our houses. And I think it's very important to recognize that even before the pandemic, the European Union had defined its future agenda on the basis of being green and being digital. And now after the pandemic, it's even more important to do it in this sustainable way, giving a substance to the word sustainable. And for this, I think exceptionally, the European Union has managed to do things that we had never done before. So in the immediate answer to the pandemic, and all of us are benefiting from this as citizens, we did in Cohesion, something that never happened. In fact, that was to create, to change the legal texts in such a way that from Cohesion Fund, from Social Fund, from Regional Fund, we could exchange, we could reprogram. And with this, it is what is being used. Already 16 billion euros have been used by the different member states, according with these facilities, oversimplified procedures, in order that you buy masks, you buy ventilators, you support extra work in hospitals, because you need to use the available money in each member state envelope in order to tackle these issues. And we are working day and night, all the staff from the Commission, in order to be able to reprogram these funds. And we just finished yesterday with the Parliament and with Council the text on REACT, and REACT is a follow-up. Of course, follow-up means that these facilities, these emergency instruments, will not be stopped. They will continue until 2023 through a special envelope of 47.5 billion that will come from this financial new instrument that is called the Next Generation EU. So the Next Generation EU is something completely different that comes on top of the multi-annual programming that comes from the MFF. And the purpose of this transition to the normal functioning of the fund by concentrating on this double objective, okay, continuing the decree procedure, having a seamless continuation of this special way of using the funds for the emergency, but also making the transition for a green and a digital economy. And this is an instrument that adds up to the instrument that for the first time supports reforms, reforms that we want in the Commission to be a kind of organized and harmonized way of using the funds, in the sense a new system in order to change the way you grow. And again, over there, the greening and the digital are of paramount importance, with benchmarks, with 37% inside the reform instrument of money dedicated to greening the economy and doing things that are projects that are green. And of course, you have the MFF with all the requirements for the regional fund, for the social fund, and again, greening is there, again, digital is there. Of course, this is not painless, and this is the reason why there is this special allocation to help those regions that are more affected. And here I must recognize and honor the work done, namely by Mr. Buzek in the Parliament and by colleagues that, in fact, very early they spotted that this transition to a more sustainable economy had to be accompanied by other policies that would help us to make the transition. So, of course, this depends on the finalization of the negotiations at a higher level. I have trust that, again, in the history of Europe, convergence of opinions, cohesion, solidarity will prevail. And so I hope that very soon, what we are doing in terms of opening opportunities at the Commission level will be responded with actual implementation on the ground. And the services here of the Commission are working with all the member states in order that we make the best of these opportunities. So thank you. We can go then into more details on Just Transition Fund, but the whole issue of growing, either growth is cohesive, sustainable, or it is not growth. It is not development. Maybe growth, but it is not development. Thank you.
Commissioner, thank you very much. That was very useful to hear your opinion and opinion of the Commission on the point of no return, as you just mentioned. We need to go green. We need to go digital in the post-pandemic times. Hopefully these times come really, really soon. I need also to assure you that ESPON program is very close to the questions of greening and digital transition, and we also provide a lot of territorial evidence on what it means, in fact, what kind of policy responses we need to turn our economies and societies into more green and more digital. I would like now to turn to Mr. Emil Bock about the Committee of the Regions position. There has been a very useful material your committee has issued, Eurobarometer, that showed that citizens trust local and regional authorities and services more than any other institution for tackling the pandemic. How would you interpret this level of confidence and trust when talking about designing and implementing the EU development policies?
Thank you so much, dear Commissioner, dear President Buzek, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank you, ESPON and German Presidency, for this opportunity, marking the importance of just transition for the whole Europe. And I would like to be very clear, as Commissioner Ferreira mentioned, it is the time to think and act green, digital, and resilient. It's a must from this very moment. We know that our goal is to have our Europe neutral, climate neutral by 2050. We cannot have a climate neutral Europe without having a climate neutral cities and regions. So as in politics, all politics is local, I would say that every green policy is a local and regional level. So from that perspective, I would like to emphasize how important it's your event today to speed up the process. So from that perspective, the European Committee of Regions fully supports the German presidency efforts to finalize that agreement and secure a timely start of new. It's vital that funds are made available to our cities and regions from the 1st January 2021. This is a very important point from our perspective. As local leaders, we know how devastating are the effects of COVID-19 pandemic on our communities and how urgently needed EU support is for our citizens and businesses. Any delay leads to worsening of their already difficult situation. With the Just Transition Fund, our union provides regions whose economies depend on carbon and highly polluting activities with a dedicated tool. Those regions will be direct beneficiaries, but their transition can be a driving example for all. Let's have some examples from that perspective. Take the Polish region of Silesia, the biggest coal mining area in the EU, with a population of 4.5 million. Coal is extracted in 18 mines, employing almost 80,000 people. This region is a part of country Poland that suffers the highest air pollution in Europe, leading to the premature death of over 40,000 people per year. So let's look on northern islands, northern Netherlands, for example. The hydrogen valley they are creating connect the entire hydrogen chain, including large-scale production of green hydrogen as a raw material for industry, the storage, transport, and distribution of hydrogen, its use of energy supply for a wide range of economical sectors and for mobility. The Just Transition Fund can help the full implementation of this project, showing the way ahead to many other European territories. The same in Poland. The Just Transition Fund can play a key role for the people of Silesia and to help Poland and the whole European Union to better protect citizens and turn climate neutrality into an opportunity. This is also the case of Romania. We have Valea Jiului, a very strong region with the coal mine problems, and people are asking from the local to regional level if Europe is helping us with Just Transition Fund. So from that perspective, we are making all efforts to promote these principles, and we believe that the Just Transition Fund platform can help bring together regional and national representatives with other actors. The Committee of the Regions, with its broad political spectrum across the EU and profound experiences on the ground, is ready to help promote a multi-level dialogue between the EU institutions, the member states, and the local and regional level to ensure that no one and no region is left behind. Let me conclude by thanking the European Parliament for voicing regions and cities' key demands on the Just Transition Fund, insisting on the need to address social aspects, avoid cuts to cohesion policy. I have to emphasize again, avoid cuts to cohesion policy, make funds available also in 2025-2027, support the insular regions, and apply the polluter pays. That's important principle, the polluter pays principle. Let's hope that later today, EU leaders overcome the obstacles to the adoption of the EU budget and Next Generation EU, so that the people of Silesia, North Netherlands, and hundreds of other communities from the European Union can be confident that the EU will be on their side soon, ensuring that the necessary green transition is fair and boosts the recovery of our union. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bock. That was extremely important to present the voice of the regions. And I think you also reiterated on three important pillars that, if I can continue from the exchange with Commissioner Ferreira, green, digital, but also resilience.
Yes.
So that's extremely essential that we discuss the resilience question in that respect. And before I give the floor to Professor Buzek, I would like to cite Professor Jeffrey Sachs, whom we hosted yesterday in our debate. And he referred to the European Green Deal as the globally leading, most comprehensive and inspiring policy response in the world. This is his view as the American and an expert in economic transition. He also said that European regions shall not be anxious, as the Green Deal brings much more opportunities that we imagine at a much lower cost that we perceive. And according to Professor Sachs, many European regions have gone through much more difficult transition times and were still able to persevere. He also referred to investments in green knowledge and technologies in these regions. If I can then go to Professor Buzek and ask you about the question of resilience at the local and regional level. You are very much a representative of such a region, Silesia, and you are also among pioneers of the Just Transition Fund. and also the European Parliament is strongly pushing for a generous financial package. So could you share with us how this joint transition fund could practically support the co-dependent regions in the phasing out process? You are muted, Professor. You need to unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, now you're on.
Doesn't go?
Yes,
okay?
it does go. Yes.
Okay, okay, sorry. Support, moderator, organizers, and Madam Commissioner Ferreira. A great work in the European Commission, about 1 year of your activity, not more yet, saying it quite shortly. And colleague from the Committee of the Regions, colleague Emil Bloch. Well, now it is a responsibility of Committee of Regions, European Parliament, and you are doing excellent work. So congratulations to all your activity. You represent this committee between us today. And let me say, well, back in the previous legislative term, I really called for establishment of such a fund under the new multi-annual financial framework as a new budgetary line. That was very important, new budgetary line. That is the case. And starting from the Committee of Industry, Research and Energy to the whole European Parliament, we could receive support, and new European Commission with Madame von der Leyen and also Commissioner Ferreira took responsibility for all the legislative proposals. Let me say that as far as I remember, in January this year, it was on the table, the proposal by Commissioner Ferreira, how to go forward with the whole idea. Let me say, money, first of all, because it's very important to discuss the issue of money. Original proposal of European Commission and European Parliament, both of us, 40 billion euro, of course, was much better than 16 or 70 billion euro, because we need much more than 17 billion. But well, we see that is probably necessary to agree on such a proposal from the Council and European Council. And we should manage with such a money, of course. And we are under the trialogue, of course. I'm present there. We've got our rapporteur from the Committee of the Regions. Excellent cooperation between German presidency. Thank you for that. Mr. Volkmar Vogel and Madam Commissioner Ferreira, our rapporteur. And it was a great progress in the last trialogue. The next one will be in a few days. And we would like to finish this year, of course, the whole work, and together with the budget. So it's very important to have everything ready. You asked a very important, of course, a crucial question, practical vision, what about the scope of support under the Just Transition Fund. Well, of course, it is reskilling or upskilling of workers unemployed. Of course, it's natural because we expect a lot of unemployed in this region. It's about 41 regions, coal regions in European Union. If we add, heavy emission regions, let's say, heavy industry regions, it could be maybe 55, 60 regions, more or less. But as a core issue for us, coal regions in transition, we've got also a European platform for coal regions in transition, for cooperation, for present the best possible projects for such a transition. Let me say, upskilling, reskilling workers, of course, natural. Let's say, kind of social projects, but we need also hard investment. It's very important, hard projects like investment in renewables and energy efficiency, combating air pollution and energy poverty. it was mentioned by colleague Emil Bock. How many people dies in my country because of smoke? Much more, unfortunately or fortunately, than because of COVID-19. Let us be very honest about that. It's an incomparable issue. Very important, revitalization of former mine and power station sites, because it's a very important issue in many core regions. Investments in companies, including SMEs, micro enterprises and startups. Also digitalization, very important. Even our connecting at the beginning of our meeting was very difficult. We should improve that. But thanks God we can see each other and to discuss. Investment in clean urban mobility, very important. Investment in silver economy, social innovation, and generally social infrastructure. That's very important, and they can help all our citizens. It was mentioned quite a few times that no one should be left behind. No region should be left behind. Let me underline, it is very important to prepare regional or local, territorial just transition programs in the regions, in the local communities, self-governments, research community, business, both private and other business. And let us help them to prepare such plans, because it's not enough to prepare such programs on the level of member states. We need support from the level of local communities, because they should feel that is our program for them, helping them to go through difficult periods. That's very important from the point of view of European Parliament. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you very much, Professor Buzek, to share with us your views on the future of the fund and need to have it as generous as possible. And also what you reiterated at the end, an importance of local and regional policy responses that very much go hand in hand with the Commission plans, with the plans of the Parliament, and also the plans of the national governments. If I could now turn to Mr. Volkmar Vogel about exactly these local and regional policy responses. How are you dealing with this problem in Germany under your presidency in the middle of a second wave of the pandemic? Is it possible to combine it all in some reasonable local and regional policy responses on just transition and recovery? Please.
Hello from Berlin. That's an interesting question, Ms. Ferreira, Mr. Bock, Professor Buzek. I'm addressing you as my colleague because I'm a parliamentary state secretary, so I am also a member of parliament in Germany, and that is a particular challenge for me in my work, but it is very interesting. Thank you very much to you and your team of ESPON too for organizing this meeting today, because it shows that the coronavirus cannot divide us. We are in different parts of our continent, but we are still talking. We're talking about the issues of tomorrow that matter for our region, for our member states and our continent. The coronavirus pandemic has a lot of challenges, of course, not just for the EU and our Council presidency. We also realize that there are always some technical problems. It is not easy to communicate, but still, we are facing a historic crisis right now of a considerable scope. It started in spring, and of course, it is continuing now in autumn. And that leaves traces in the economies and society. And of course, we have to see that because of this, regional disparities threaten to exacerbate between the member states, but also within the individual member states. The COVID crisis and its consequences have different effects on the different European regions, depending on the regional situation. And this is really what makes Europe special. It is so diverse. I would like to say a few words on the German relief and recovery program. On the one hand, of course, it ensures healthcare, but it also protects businesses, employees, and their jobs, and is to strengthen social cohesion. But I would like to stress that it is an investment in the future. So it focuses on sustainable economic growth, sustainable transport and energy infrastructure, and of course, and in particular, climate protection, our topic today. It is a priority of the German Council presidency to also promote an economic recovery in Europe. This is in line with our slogan of the Council presidency, Together for European Recovery. And we've stated that right from the beginning of our presidency. We want Europe to emerge more united from the crisis and be set up better to face future challenges. That, of course, includes the budget. It includes our agreements on the budget. At the end of June, the heads of state and government of the EU agreed on the long-term budget of an unprecedented 1.8 trillion euros. But we need that money if we want to overcome the challenges. This is a very strong signal that the European Union is sending. It shows that it is willing and able to act and overcome the challenges. I am also relieved that last week, on the 10th of November, the chief negotiators of the European Parliament and the Council under the German chairmanship agreed on a comprehensive recovery fund to fight the consequences of the coronavirus pandemic. And they also agreed on the MFF 2021 to 27. This is a strong signal, as I've said, and it is really a silver lining for the European citizens and for our businesses, of course. This gets us one step closer to our goal of European recovery. Now, this result has to be adopted in the member states and then implemented. 2 member states still voiced some doubts on Monday, November 16th. And I can ensure you that we take these concerns very seriously. And we are trying to find a quick solution with all our partners. Because we know that Europe is waiting for this COVID recovery fund. We finally need to get the money where it is needed to millions of people and many, many businesses, especially SMEs in Europe, whose livelihoods have come under threat by the pandemic. And this is why I can only appeal to all the policymakers to really take this situation very seriously and come to an agreement. I am quite confident that we will succeed, and the German government is confident too, because this package has some very clear priorities, also when it comes to funding, and climate protection is an important priority. And this shows that an economic recovery after the COVID crisis and climate change can only be tackled together. These two are not mutually exclusive, but measures have to complement each other. This is always our priority. We must not ignore the challenge of climate change, and we cannot postpone the issue, but we have to make development more sustainable now, especially when it comes to energy generation. And those speaking before me already mentioned that there are large regional differences in Europe. Many regions depend on coal extraction. This is true for a part of my own home region too. So either coal or lignite. And of course, I can only say that coal extraction, be it in Silesia or be it in Germany or elsewhere, has long been a pillar of the regional identity in this region. And often it's also the biggest employer in the regions. Why am I saying that? Well, it has to be a matter of course that we offer special support to regions affected by coal phase out in all European member states. This idea of a just transition is a binding part of climate protection measures in Europe and also globally. This is in line with the goal of the European Union to strengthen economic, social, and territorial cohesion, and with a particular focus on regions affected by industrial change. And if I talk about regions, then of course I talk about home regions. And this kind of just transition and social cohesion is also at the foundation of the federal government's regional development policy approach. Its goal is an active structural policy to achieve equilibrium conditions. And of course, European structural funds play a very important role here. And I would like to thank the European Union, the Commission, and all those involved in the process for supporting my home region too. My home region is Thuringia. It was really a blessing to receive these funds to support structural change in my region. This European Regional Development Fund, the Social Fund, and other funds were there to help solve structural problems in my own home region. Thank you very much. This is really close to my heart and I'm deeply grateful. But of course, we had to co-finance these funds. We have our own regional development strategy with national funds. And we've had intense discussions with the affected federal states. And we also have a commission representing all stakeholder groups. And based on the recommendation of this commission, we passed an act on structural change in coal mining areas, which aims to offer a long-term and reliable planning framework to the region, mostly lignite mining regions and the businesses, and also to include these stakeholders. Of course, the state is also part of the process to make sure that there's social compatibility of the measures. The coal phase out, of course, means great uncertainty for people. They don't only worry about their jobs, but also about losing their home region and their own identity. And dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we have to address these concerns. We have to take them seriously and disperse them. We need a transparent process to create new structures and new jobs so that the people can remain in their home regions, in their communities, with a good livelihood, and to pass on the baton to the new generations. This is important to us. Colleagues, I would now like to come to a conclusion. I believe that the long-term EU budget, the MMF, and the Recovery Fund give us a good framework to reach an economic recovery and a just transition in coal mining regions. It will be important to include the affected regions in the development and implementation of the programs, because the regions in Europe know best and have the most detailed knowledge what is needed on the ground and which measures are going to be effective. At the same time, however, this process needs to be managed by the member states to ensure that the interests of European regions are met, because we know that the regions are what makes Europe strong. The regions are what makes Europe diverse. And this is really a local advantage that we have when competing with other parts of the world. Thank you.
Mr. Vogel, thank you very much for your intervention that actually touched upon a lot of things that the German presidency stakeholders mean as very important, as essential for succeeding with the transition. And this is exactly what I would like to ask all of you, dear panelists, for some quick reaction. We also gather some questions from the audience, from the regions and cities concerned. And in the along this line of, well, that no one is going to be left behind, there are some specific concerns, as you say, Mr. Vogel. One of them is, well, how to keep the businesses, how to keep the citizens involved in this transformation, how to convince people from coal regions that the energy transformation is beneficial for them in the long term. Do we know of any good practices? Can you share with us any advice that would somehow mobilize the people from these regions, the businesses in these regions, that certain support will be offered? And what is the role of different authorities in that respect? Who would like to reflect on it from you? Yes, please. I think
if I may say a few words, since the very beginning of the project, we just counted on European platform for cooperation of coal regions in transition. Very important, 41 regions altogether, and all the good practices from Spain, from Germany, from Czech Republic were on the table since the very beginning. It's very, very important. Now in this year, 2020, they had altogether 12 or 13 billion million euro for cooperation, nothing else, not for hard projects, for cooperation. It's a lot of money, 12 or 13 million euros. And they are cooperating very, very effectively. That's one thing very important. And let me underline another issue: enhance the role of self-governments. Why? Because we should, they should feel in the regions something like ownership of the territorial just transition plans. Without such an ownership, it will be very, very difficult to explain them that is their program for them, they could help it, and so on, so on. And well, let us say self-governments, of course, but business, public and private business community, research community, NGOs, everyone should be involved. And it depends, as a matter of fact, on member states. Because if we've got an idea of decentralization, it's very easy to say, well, our state just or national just transition plans, we could divide on the regional, local just transition plans, and we should put them together and to observe what is really the most important for local communities. That's the most important answer for their expectations. And I think it's my answer to you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you very much, Professor Buzek. Mr. Vogel, you also raised your hand and wanted to share, but very quick reactions because we are approaching the end of the debate. So very quick reflections, please.
Yeah.
Well, yes, sorry. I thought that you wanted to open the discussion, yes, and I wanted to be very brief. I can only support what Buzek said. The key to success is that the regions have a say in that all stakeholders are involved, and that before we agree on measures, we collect the ideas as to how we can change things. An example of the coal area in the center of Germany that is also characterized by a chemical industry as well. This used to be fueled with coal, now with oil, but in future none of these fossil fuels will be available. And the know-how that we have, this know-how will move towards hydrogen. So we can use this know-how, we can tap know-how that exists there already. And I think this was the ideas brought together by the Commission that met until the summer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bock, if I may ask you for a quick reaction.
4 points, very concrete. First, we need to be pragmatic. Second, we need dialogue and the concrete money support. And the approach, the mindset should be, we are in the same boat and we need the eco, not ego approach. Eco system, not ego system. Third, a very concrete plan. A goal without a plan is just a wish. So we need very concrete steps. People need concrete actions to see what happens with their jobs in 1, 5 or 10 years from now on. What are their perspectives for their families? So should be very, very concrete plan after a debate in eco, not ego approach. Last but not least, identify the competitive advantage of any regions and city. Any regions has some competitive advantage. In one could be tourism, in another one could be the innovative process. We have to tackle that competitive advantage and to focus on that with concrete plan and money. Thank you.
Mr. Bock, thank you very much. That was short, concise, but I think it sounded really well. And Commissioner, what's your reflections on all of this? How to combine this planning at different levels? How to integrate, incorporate also the citizens, the businesses, the micro businesses in the entire landscape of the just transition and recovery?
Well, I would agree with everything that has been said. For me, I would just like to underline a couple of points. I think this time we have the means, provided that what is going to be dealt with at the highest political level prevails in this negotiation, prevails the interest of the citizens and the interest of Europe, and the philosophy that is behind this construction of the European Union. In your answering your concrete question, I think it's at this moment, and trying to answer in particular what has been said by Mr. Emil Bock now, we have got to, this moment is the moment in which we are asking the regions, with support of the member states, but to propose to us how they want to use the Just Transition Fund. So we are asking exactly for that plan. And these plans cannot be top-down. They have got to be bottom-up. They have got to be engaging the citizens, be it trade unions, the entrepreneurs, the politicians, the schools, the headmasters. I mean, everybody has got to participate in this plan. I'm not saying it is an easy thing. I think both Mr. Volkmar, Vogel and Professor Buzek, they mentioned it. I mean, but for this we have got to make the best use of exchange of experiences. And last but not least, we have got to see the Just Transition Fund with the mechanism, so the second pillar and third pillar that engage a more bankable kind of approach. I mean, as an envelope. But the quality of what we do is determinant. And for this, all the work that you do, that the academia does, supporting the organization of a good plan is absolutely essential. Naturally, the support will have to reflect the relative prosperity of the regions. That's the logic and the countries. So a country that is less strong should be more helped in this transition. This is the logic of regional development and of cohesion. And to close up, I think we just have to take full responsibility, because it is a matter of responsibility to grasp this unique opportunity and to make this transition as positive and as less painful as possible, because the transition is there. It will happen anyway. Mr. Buzek and I had the chance exactly to visit before we had this COVID problem. I visit Bitom, I visit the Silesia, Katowice, and in German Brandenburg, and I could see how much we can learn from each other, how much we can together reach this moment and make it a huge opportunity for a more resilient future. Trying to hold to past technologies and to things that are, in our memory, rejecting the natural change will never work. And we saw in Katowice that the natural renewal was already putting a lot of workers out of the business, because the evolution is in that direction. So the opportunity is to make this change manageable and to reorient it towards a more sustainable future. It's not easy. That's why we are here. That's why there is support. And that's why organizations like you are so essential, because it puts people together, thinking together for a better future. Thank you.
Dear Commissioner, I think that I should also close up on my part on behalf of ESPON, because we have plans, we have budgets, we have competence, we have knowledge, we have commitments, we have ownership, and ESPON provides evidence to complete the picture. So I would like to really encourage you to look into our policy brief on structural change for those coal phase-out regions, because we are presenting some ideas and concepts how to do it in the best way, using the entrepreneurial discovery processes, using also spillovers from the local coal-based industries, because these people wouldn't like to be left behind. We would like to keep the people, not to afford the brain drain and losing the important population in these regions. So I would like to thank you very much for this debate. Commissioner Ferreira, Mayor Bock, Professor Buzek, and State Secretary Vogel. I do hope this was a very good and inspiring moment for all of us. And we would like to continue with similar live debates, barring all the technical problems we might have encountered, but we are still learning how to use the digital technologies, which is natural for us, I think. And thank everyone who took part in this streamed debate, and hope this is not our last opportunity to meet with all of you and provide further evidence and suggestions on how to move on with the just transition and recovery. Thanks again for being with us. All the best to Brussels, all the best to Cluj-Napoca, all the best to Silesia region, and also to all the best to the federal government in Germany. So best regards from Luxembourg, and please stay tuned to the ESPON program and our thematic activities.